3 days after my grandmother's funeral, I opened a dusty envelope hidden beneath her bedroom floorboards. And within 60 seconds, everything I believed about my family collapsed. My parents begged me to burn it without reading a single word. My older brother stood in the doorway looking terrified, and my grandmother's final handwritten sentence chilled me to the bone. If you're reading this, someone in this house has spent years stealing your life. I should have walked away. Instead, I unfolded the letter, and unknowingly started a war my family had been hiding for nearly 30 years. My name is Emma Carter, and until that morning, I thought I had the perfect family. We lived in a beautiful house outside Boston. My father, Michael Carter, owned a successful construction company. My mother, Laura Carter, was respected by everyone in town for her charity work. My older brother, Ethan, was the golden child who could never do anything wrong. From the outside, we looked like the family everyone wished they had. Inside those walls, however, silence covered secrets no one dared mention. Growing up, I always felt like something didn't fit. Family photo albums contained hundreds of pictures of Ethan as a child, but very few of me. Whenever I asked why, Mom would smile and say the camera had broken during those years. It sounded believable when I was 6. By 28, it sounded like an excuse repeated too many times. Grandma Evelyn was the only person who ever looked at me differently. Every birthday, she would hug me tightly and whisper the same strange sentence. "One day, you'll understand why you're stronger than all of them." I laughed every time, thinking it was just something grandmother said. I never imagined she was trying to prepare me for the truth. After the funeral, while everyone argued downstairs about selling Grandma's old house, I wandered into her bedroom one last time. The room still smelled of lavender and old books. As I moved an antique rocking chair, one loose floorboard shifted beneath my feet. Hidden underneath was a small wooden box wrapped in faded blue cloth. Inside sat a single sealed envelope with my name written across the front in Grandma's unmistakable handwriting. The moment I picked it up, I heard hurried footsteps racing toward the bedroom. And someone shouted my name in pure panic. The next thing my father said made me realize that opening this letter could destroy our family forever. The bedroom door burst open before I could break the seal. My father, Michael, stood there breathing heavily, his face pale with panic. I'd never seen him look afraid before. My mother rushed in behind him, tears already forming in her eyes. "Emma, don't read it," she whispered. "Please." Her voice wasn't angry. It was desperate. That frightened me more than anything. My brother Ethan stepped into the room last, refusing to meet my eyes. The silence between all three of them told me one thing. They already knew exactly what was inside that envelope. Dad slowly held out his hand. "Give it to me," he said quietly. "Your grandmother wasn't thinking clearly near the end." I stared at him. Grandma had been sharp until her final breath. She remembered birthdays, old stories, even tiny details everyone else had forgotten. For him to question her memory made no sense. "If it's meaningless," I replied, "why are you so scared of me reading it?" No one answered. Instead, Mom stepped closer and grabbed my wrist. "Emma, some secrets only bring pain. You have a good life. Don't destroy it." Her hands were shaking so badly that I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I looked around the room. 3 people I had trusted my entire life were standing together against me. Not one of them asked what Grandma wanted me to know. They only wanted that letter gone. Without saying another word, I tore the envelope open. Dad took one step forward. "Emma, stop!" I unfolded the first page. The handwriting was unmistakably Grandma's. "My sweet Emma, if this letter is in your hands, then I was right. They never told you the truth because they were afraid of what you would become after learning it." I felt my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Before you read another word, remember this. None of what happened was your fault." My hands began to tremble. Dad suddenly reached for the paper, but I pulled it away before he could touch it. Then I read the next sentence. "The people who raised you are hiding the biggest lie of your life." The room went completely silent. No one denied it. No one called Grandma a liar. No one even looked surprised. At that exact moment, I realized the nightmare wasn't written inside the letter. It was standing right in front of me. The next line revealed a name I had never heard before. And that name would change my life forever. I ignored the tears, the pleading, and the silence surrounding me. My eyes dropped back to Grandma's letter. Every word felt heavier than the last. "The man you have always called your father is not the man who brought you into this world." My breathing stopped. I read the sentence again, hoping I had misunderstood it. I hadn't. The room felt smaller. My father slowly lowered his head. My mother closed her eyes. Ethan turned away and stared out the window. No one said the words were false. The next line revealed a name I had never heard before. His name is David Bennett. David Bennett. The name meant absolutely nothing to me. Grandma continued writing. David never abandoned you. He spent years trying to find you, but every letter, every phone call, and every attempt to see you was blocked before it ever reached your hands. My entire body went cold. I looked directly at my mother. What is she talking about? Laura's lips trembled, but no words came out. I turned toward Dad. Tell me she's lying. Michael didn't answer. Instead, he slowly sat down in Grandma's old rocking chair like a man carrying a weight too heavy to stand under. That silence hurt more than any confession could have. Grandma's handwriting continued across the page. You will probably hate me for staying quiet all these years, Emma. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I made a promise I was too weak to break. I believed they would eventually tell you themselves. They never did. A tear rolled down my cheek before I even realized I was crying. For 28 years, my entire identity had been built on one story. Now that story was falling apart one sentence at a time. Ethan finally spoke. Emma, please stop reading. His voice cracked. I looked at him. You knew? He couldn't even look me in the eyes. After a long silence, he whispered one word. Yes. That single answer shattered something inside me. My own brother had known. For how long? Years? My whole life? I looked back at the letter. Near the bottom of the page, Grandma had underlined one sentence twice. If you truly want the answers, go to the old lake house before anyone else gets there. My heart skipped. The lake house had been empty for over 15 years. At least, that's what my family had always told me. Less than 10 minutes later, someone broke into Grandma's bedroom, and they weren't there for the letter. They were looking for something even more dangerous. The drive to the old lake house took less than 40 minutes, but it felt like the longest journey of my life. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. After leaving Grandma's house, I ignored every phone call from Mom, Dad, and Ethan. My phone kept vibrating in the passenger seat, but I never looked at the screen. If they had lied to me for 28 years, they could wait one more hour for an explanation. The lake house sat at the edge of a quiet forest exactly as I remembered it from childhood. The wooden porch was covered in leaves. Several windows were cracked. Paint peeled from the walls, and weeds had swallowed most of the front path. It looked abandoned, until I noticed fresh tire tracks in the mud leading straight to the front door. Someone had been here, recently. The front door was already open. My heartbeat quickened as I stepped inside. Dust covered the furniture, but something felt wrong. Drawers had been pulled out. Old cabinets stood wide open. Books lay scattered across the floor as if someone had searched every corner of the house. They weren't looking for money. They were looking for something specific. I slowly walked toward Grandpa's old office at the back of the house. The door hung half open. Inside, the room was a disaster. Shelves had been emptied. Picture frames were smashed. Papers covered the floor. Then I saw it. An old metal filing cabinet stood against the wall with every drawer ripped open except one. The bottom drawer. Someone had tried to force it open but failed. I pulled the handle. It opened immediately. Inside rested a single brown leather journal wrapped carefully inside a faded white cloth. Across the front, written in black ink, were 6 words that made my hands freeze. Emma, read this before trusting anyone. My breathing became shallow. This wasn't Grandma's handwriting. It belonged to someone else. Before I could open the journal, I heard slow footsteps crunching across the gravel outside. They stopped directly in front of the house. Then a deep male voice echoed through the silence. Emma, I know you're inside. Every hair on my arm stood up, because I had never heard that voice before. But somehow, it already knew my name. When I opened the front door, the man waiting outside claimed to know exactly why my family had spent 28 years hiding the truth. I stood frozen beside the front door, my hand gripping Grandpa's journal so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every instinct told me to run. Instead, I slowly looked through the cracked window. Standing on the porch was a man in his late 50s with silver beginning to show in his dark hair. He wore a weathered brown jacket, faded jeans, and carried no weapon. His face looked tired, not dangerous. Yet the sadness in his eyes felt strangely familiar. When our eyes met, he didn't move. He simply said, "Emma." "I've been waiting 28 years for this moment." I opened the door just enough to keep one foot behind it. "Who are you?" The man swallowed hard before answering. "My name is Daniel Brooks." The name meant nothing to me. "I knew your grandmother." I tightened my grip on the journal. "That's impossible." "She never mentioned you." He gave a faint smile. "Because she promised she wouldn't." My heart pounded harder. "What do you want from me?" "I don't want anything," he replied quietly. "I'm here because someone else is coming. And if they find that journal before you read it, you'll never learn the truth." I immediately looked down at the leather notebook in my hands. "What's inside it?" "The proof." One word. That was all he said. Before I could ask another question, a black SUV suddenly sped toward the lake house, its tires throwing gravel across the driveway. Daniel's expression changed instantly. "They found you." The SUV stopped only a few yards away. Two men stepped out wearing dark jackets and sunglasses. Neither of them looked at Daniel. Their eyes were locked on me. One of them shouted, "Emma, hand us the journal. It doesn't belong to you." Daniel stepped directly in front of me without hesitation. "Get back inside," he said. "Who are they?" "They've been cleaning up this secret for decades." The taller man began walking toward the porch. "We're giving you one chance." Daniel leaned closer and whispered something. That made my blood run cold. "They're not here to take the journal. They're here to make sure you never finish reading it." Seconds later, the first gunshot echoed through the quiet forest, and everything spiraled out of control. The first gunshot shattered the silence before I even had time to react. The bullet struck the wooden porch railing only inches from where I had been standing. I stumbled backward as Daniel grabbed my arm and pulled me inside the lake house. He slammed the front door shut and shoved an old cabinet against it. Another shot echoed outside, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps rushing toward the porch. "What is happening?" I shouted. Daniel looked directly into my eyes. "They're terrified you'll read that journal." The men outside began pounding on the front door. "Open it, Emma. You don't know what you're protecting." Their voices sounded controlled, almost rehearsed. They weren't angry. They were desperate. Daniel pointed toward the back hallway. "There's another exit." We ran through the narrow hallway as splintering wood echoed behind us. The front door wouldn't hold much longer. My heart pounded so loudly that I could barely hear anything else. We burst out the back door and disappeared into the thick forest behind the lake house. Branches scraped against my arms while leaves crunched beneath our feet. After several minutes of running, Daniel finally stopped beside a fallen tree. "They won't follow us much farther." I leaned against the trunk, struggling to catch my breath. "Who are those people?" Daniel remained silent for a moment before answering. "They work for someone who has spent nearly 30 years protecting one lie." I looked down at the journal still clutched against my chest. "I need answers. You deserve them." With trembling hands, I opened the first page. Inside was an old family photograph. A much younger woman stood smiling while holding a baby wrapped in a white blanket. The woman wasn't my mother. And the baby was me. Under the photograph, someone had written a single sentence. "Emma was taken on October 14th. Not adopted." I felt every ounce of strength leave my body. Taken, not adopted? My hands began shaking uncontrollably. "This can't be real." Daniel slowly nodded. "It is." Before I could read another page, my phone suddenly vibrated. The caller ID made my blood freeze. Dad. For the first time since leaving Grandma's house. He had left me a voicemail. And judging by the panic in his voice, he wasn't calling to stop me anymore. He was calling to warn me. My father's voicemail revealed one terrifying truth. The people chasing me weren't the most dangerous ones anymore. I stared at my phone for several seconds before pressing play. My father's voice sounded nothing like the man who had raised me. He wasn't calm. He wasn't in control. He sounded terrified. "Emma, if you're hearing this, don't come home. Don't trust anyone who tells you they know the whole truth. There are things even your grandmother never discovered." My heart pounded harder with every word. Then his voice cracked. "And whatever you do, don't let Daniel take you to Blackwood Farm." The voicemail ended. I slowly lowered the phone and looked at Daniel. He had gone completely still. "You knew he would say that, didn't you?" I asked. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the trees surrounding us, checking every direction before speaking. Your father still thinks he can fix this. Answer my question. He sighed. Yes, my chest tightened. So you know what Blackwood Farm is? Daniel looked away. I do. Then tell me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, he reached into his jacket pocket and removed a small, rusted key attached to an old leather tag. Across the tag were 3 faded words. Blackwood Storage Unit. This belonged to your grandmother, he said quietly. She gave it to me 2 weeks before she died. I stared at the key. What's inside? The evidence she couldn't keep in the house. Before I could respond, another sound echoed through the forest. Not gunshots, police sirens. Several patrol vehicles raced toward the lake house in the distance. Relief washed over me. The police are here. Daniel didn't smile. They're too late. What do you mean? They weren't called to protect you. My stomach dropped. They were called to recover the journal. At that exact moment, my phone vibrated again. This time it wasn't my father. It was Ethan. I answered immediately. He was crying. Real crying? Not pretending. Emma, he whispered. You have to listen to me. What happened? They took Mom. I froze. What? They came to the house 20 minutes ago. Who? I don't know. His breathing became uneven. They kept asking where you were. My blood turned cold. Then Ethan whispered something I never expected to hear. They weren't looking for you anymore. They were looking for the baby bracelet. I immediately remembered the old photograph inside the journal. The baby, the white blanket. Something had been wrapped around my wrist. Something Grandma had hidden. Something everyone else wanted. The next page of the journal revealed exactly what that missing bracelet proved, and why people were willing to destroy an entire family to get it. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Ethan's words echoed inside my head. They weren't looking for you anymore. They were looking for the baby bracelet. I looked down at the journal resting in my lap. My hands shook as I turned the next page. Tucked between 2 faded sheets was an old hospital photograph. A newborn baby's tiny wrist wore a silver bracelet with one name engraved across it. Emma Bennett. Not Emma Carter. Emma Bennett. My entire body went numb. Why does it say Bennett? I whispered. Daniel closed his eyes before answering. Because that was your birth name. I felt the ground disappear beneath me. My whole life was built on another identity, Daniel finished quietly. I couldn't breathe. 28 years. 28 birthdays. 28 Christmas mornings, and not once had I known my real name. The next page contained a copy of an official hospital birth record. Across the top, it clearly read Mother, Olivia Bennett. Father, David Bennett. There was no mention of Michael Carter. No mention of Laura Carter. Nothing. Only one red stamp across the bottom caught my attention. File removed by court order. I looked at Daniel. Who removed it? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he handed me another folded document hidden inside the journal. When I opened it, I saw the signature. Judge Richard Hayes, the same judge whose picture had hung in our family dining room for years. The man my father always called his oldest friend. My heart nearly stopped. This can't be possible. Daniel nodded slowly. It gets worse. Before I could ask what he meant, my phone buzzed again. A text message, unknown number. Only 6 words. They're lying about your mother, too. Attached beneath the message was an old photograph. A young woman smiling while holding me as a baby. It wasn't Laura. It wasn't anyone I recognized. On the back of the photograph, written in faded blue ink, were 5 words. She never stopped looking either. Tears filled my eyes. My father wasn't the only person stolen from my life. My mother had been too. At that exact moment, Daniel looked toward the road and quietly whispered, "We have to leave." Why? He stared at a black SUV slowly pulling onto the dirt road less than 200 yards away. This time, they brought someone who knows exactly who you really are. When the woman stepped out of the SUV, she smiled at me and called me by the name I had at birth. The black SUV rolled to a stop only a few feet away. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear myself breathe. The driver's door opened first, then the rear door. A woman stepped out wearing a long gray coat, her dark hair tied neatly behind her head. She looked to be in her early 50s. There was no anger on her face. No fear, only sadness. She looked directly at me and smiled softly. Emma Bennett, my blood froze. No one had ever called me that before. Not until today. Daniel immediately stepped in front of me. Stay behind me. The woman slowly raised both hands to show she wasn't carrying a weapon. I'm not here to hurt her. Then why are you here? Daniel demanded. She ignored him. Her eyes never left mine. I've been looking for you for 28 years. Every word sent another chill through my body. Who are you? For a moment, she couldn't answer. Tears filled her eyes before she finally whispered, My name is Grace Bennett. The last name hit me like lightning. Bennett. The same name on my birth bracelet. The same name on my birth certificate. The same name Grandma had written in her letter. I could barely force the next words out. How do you know me? Grace reached into her handbag and slowly removed an old photograph. She handed it to me. The picture showed a young woman holding a newborn baby inside a hospital room. The baby wore the same silver bracelet I had just seen in the journal. The woman in the picture looked exactly like Grace. I was there the day you were born, she whispered. I held you before anyone else did. Tears blurred my vision. If that's true, then who are you? Grace's voice broke. I'm your aunt. Everything around me seemed to stop. My sister Olivia, she paused, struggling to continue, was your mother. Before I could even process those words, Daniel suddenly grabbed my arm. Emma! His voice had changed. I looked toward him. His face had gone completely pale. Several black SUVs were speeding toward us from the opposite direction, raising clouds of dust behind them. Grace turned around. The color drained from her face. They found us. Who? She looked back at me with genuine fear. The people who made your mother disappear. The convoy was only seconds away. Daniel pulled me backward toward the trees. Run! As we started moving, Grace shouted one final sentence that echoed in my mind. Emma, your mother is still alive. The next clue would lead me to someone I had believed was dead my entire life, and nothing could have prepared me for where she was being kept. My legs barely kept up as Daniel pulled me through the forest. Behind us, SUV doors slammed shut and voices echoed between the trees. Whoever those people were, they weren't slowing down. Grace stayed only a few steps behind us, constantly looking over her shoulder. After nearly 10 minutes of running, we reached an abandoned hunting cabin hidden deep inside the woods. Daniel locked the door, pulled every curtain closed, and finally looked at me. Emma, what Grace told you is true. I couldn't even speak. My mother, I swallowed hard, is alive? Grace nodded slowly, tears running down her face. Olivia never abandoned you. Then where has she been for 28 years? Neither of them answered immediately. Instead, Grace opened an old canvas backpack and carefully removed another envelope. This one wasn't addressed to me. Across the front were only 3 words. For my daughter. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single handwritten letter. The first line made my heart stop. Emma, if you're reading this, then I failed to come back for you. I recognized the handwriting instantly. It wasn't Grandma's, it belonged to my mother. I continued reading through blurred tears. Every birthday, every Christmas, every single day I imagined what you looked like. They told the world I disappeared willingly. That was the first lie. I covered my mouth. Grace quietly whispered, Keep reading. The second lie was that I died in a car accident. My breathing became uneven. The truth is much darker. I was taken because I refused to sign documents that would have given them everything your grandfather owned. When I refused, they took you away from me. I couldn't believe what I was reading. They kidnapped her? I whispered. Daniel nodded. They wanted the Carter estate. Grace looked directly at me. Your grandfather owned land worth hundreds of millions today. I stared at her. This was never about family. She slowly shook her head. It was always about money. Before I could ask another question, Daniel's satellite phone suddenly rang. He answered immediately. The color disappeared from his face. What happened? He listened silently for several seconds. Then he slowly lowered the phone. They found the cabin. Every muscle in my body tightened. How? Daniel looked toward the only window. They've been tracking us the entire time. Outside. Headlights slowly appeared between the trees. They weren't hiding anymore. They knew exactly where we were. The next person to step out of the lead SUV wasn't a stranger. It was someone I had trusted my entire life. The headlights stopped just outside the cabin. Every light inside was off, yet whoever had arrived knew exactly where we were. I slowly looked through a narrow crack in the curtain. My heart almost stopped. It wasn't a stranger. It was my father. Michael Carter stepped out of the lead SUV wearing the same navy jacket he had worn to Grandma's funeral. Behind him stood 4 men in black tactical clothing. None of them looked like police officers. They looked like men who had come to finish something. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. "Dad," my voice barely came out. Grace slowly shook her head. "He isn't here to save you." Daniel quietly handed me the journal. "If anything happens, don't let him take this." A loud knock echoed through the cabin. Then my father's voice. "Emma, please come outside." He didn't sound angry. He sounded exhausted. "I know you're in there." No one moved. A second knock. "Emma, I never wanted any of this." Tears filled my eyes. For 28 years, this man had kissed my forehead before school, taught me how to ride a bicycle, stayed awake beside my hospital bed when I was sick. Was all of it a lie? I couldn't stop myself. I unlocked the cabin door. Daniel grabbed my arm. "Don't," but it was too late. I stepped outside. My father looked at me for several seconds before speaking. "I know you hate me." I couldn't answer. "I deserve that." He slowly removed a folded photograph from his pocket and handed it to me. The picture showed him holding me as a baby. He looked genuinely happy. "I loved you from the first day I saw you." My hands trembled. "Then why did you lie?" His eyes filled with tears. "Because the day I tried to give you back, they threatened to kill your mother." Everything inside me froze. They told me if I ever contacted Olivia again, neither of you would survive. I stared at him in disbelief. "So you kept me? I protected you the only way I knew how." Behind me, Grace whispered, "Don't believe him." But before anyone could say another word, one of the men standing behind my father suddenly raised a handgun. He wasn't aiming at me. He was aiming at Michael. The shot rang through the forest. My father collapsed to his knees. As I screamed his name, he looked up at me one last time and whispered, "Find Olivia." Then everything went silent. The man who shot my father wasn't working for him. He was working for the person who had controlled this nightmare from the very beginning. The gunshot echoed through the forest long after my father collapsed. I dropped to my knees beside him, pressing my hands against the blood spreading across his jacket. "Dad, stay with me." His breathing had already become weak. He tried to say something else, but no words came out. His eyes slowly closed. I looked up in horror. The man holding the gun hadn't even flinched. He calmly lowered the weapon as if he had completed another routine job. Then someone else stepped out of the black SUV. Every person standing there immediately moved aside. The moment I saw her face, Grace gasped. "No," Daniel whispered under his breath. "It can't be." The woman walked forward wearing an elegant black coat and leather gloves. She looked to be around 60 years old, confident, perfectly composed, and completely emotionless. She smiled at me. "Hello, Emma." I had never seen her before. Yet somehow, she looked familiar. "I've waited a very long time to meet you." I stood up slowly. "Who are you?" She removed her sunglasses. "My name is Victoria Hayes." The surname hit me immediately. Hayes. Judge Richard Hayes. The forged court order. The missing hospital records. Everything suddenly connected. "My father," she said calmly, "built this family." I stared at her in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" She smiled without the slightest guilt. "Your grandfather refused to sell his land." Grace's face filled with anger. "You destroyed their lives." Victoria ignored her. When persuasion failed, she looked directly into my eyes. "We created a new family." Every word felt colder than the last. "You stole me." "No," she tilted her head. "We relocated you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "My mother spent 28 years looking for me." Victoria shrugged. "People stopped searching eventually." Grace suddenly stepped forward. "You're lying." Victoria laughed softly. "Am I?" She reached into her handbag and pulled out a worn medical file. Without saying a word, she tossed it onto the ground in front of me. I picked it up. Across the first page, a recent hospital admission form. Patient name, Olivia Bennett. My hand started shaking. Admission date. 2 weeks ago. She wasn't dead. She wasn't missing. She was alive. Right now. I looked up. Where is she? Police vehicles surrounded the forest within seconds. Red and blue lights flashed through the trees, but something immediately felt wrong. None of the officers pointed their weapons at Victoria. Instead, they formed a protective circle around her. My stomach dropped. This doesn't make sense. Victoria smiled. It makes perfect sense. The police chief slowly stepped forward. His badge read Chief Alan Morris. He wasn't looking at Victoria. He was looking directly at me. Emma Carter. His voice was calm. Please place the journal on the ground. I tightened my grip around it. No. Daniel stepped beside me. You have no legal authority to seize that evidence. Chief Morris reached into his pocket and calmly unfolded a document. I do now. He held it up. A fresh court order, signed only 3 hours earlier, authorizing the immediate confiscation of every document connected to the Bennett family. My heart sank. They're covering it up again, Grace whispered. Victoria smiled without saying a word. Daniel leaned toward me. Don't let them have it. Chief Morris took another step. This is your final warning. Suddenly, one young officer standing behind the police line lowered his weapon. He looked nervous. His eyes kept moving between me and the journal. Then he quietly spoke. Sir. Chief Morris didn't look at him. I said, stand down. The young officer swallowed hard. Sir, that document is fake. Silence. Every officer turned toward him. Chief Morris slowly faced the young man. What did you just say? The officer removed a folded sheet from his vest. I checked the court database before we arrived. He looked directly at me. There is no legal warrant. Victoria's smile disappeared for the first time. Chief Morris's face turned cold. You should have followed orders. The young officer didn't move. Instead, he walked toward me. My name is Officer Liam Brooks, he paused. My father worked this case 28 years ago. My heartbeat stopped. He spent his entire career trying to expose what happened to your family. Liam reached into his pocket. He handed me a small flash drive. My father died before he could finish. He looked me straight in the eyes. But he left everything here. Victoria suddenly shouted, Take that drive. Several armed men rushed forward. Daniel grabbed my arm. Run! The forest exploded into chaos as everyone moved at once. Behind us. One gunshot echoed through the trees. Then another, when I looked back. Officer Liam Brooks was lying on the ground, still clutching his police badge. The flash drive contained one hidden video, and the person speaking in it had been missing for 28 years. I didn't stop running until the sound of gunshots disappeared behind us. My chest burned with every breath as Daniel, Grace, and I reached an abandoned maintenance tunnel beneath the old railway tracks. My hands were still shaking. Officer Liam? Brooks had died protecting a flash drive he barely had time to place in my hand. Whatever was stored inside it. People had been willing to kill for it. Daniel pulled an old laptop from a metal storage locker hidden inside the tunnel. Your grandmother prepared this place years ago, he said. I stared at him. She knew this day would come. Without another word, I inserted the flash drive. Only one file appeared on the screen. Final message, MP4. My finger hesitated over the mouse. Then I clicked. The screen flickered. A woman slowly appeared. She looked tired, older than the photograph I'd found. But I recognized her instantly. Olivia Bennett, my mother. Tears filled my eyes before she even spoke. Emma, if you're watching this, then they failed to destroy the truth. I covered my mouth. She smiled softly. First, I need you to know something. She leaned closer to the camera. I never stopped looking for you. Every word shattered another piece of my heart. For 28 years, they kept telling me you were safe. Then they told me you were gone forever. Grace quietly wiped away her tears. Daniel looked down at the floor. Michael Carter wasn't your enemy. I looked up in shock. He tried to bring you back twice. My breathing stopped. Both times they threatened to kill you before he could reach us. Everything my father had said before dying was true. My mother continued. The real person behind this wasn't Judge Hayes. The screen froze for a split second. Then another face appeared beside her. An older man, gray hair, expensive suit, cold eyes. I had seen him before, only I couldn't remember where. Then Olivia spoke the sentence that changed everything. His name is Senator William Hayes. Daniel's face turned white. Oh no, Grace whispered. He's still in office. The room fell silent. This had never been about one family. It had never been about one judge. It reached far beyond anything I had imagined. Before the video ended, my mother looked directly into the camera one final time. Emma, don't come looking for me. She paused. Because by the time you see this, the screen suddenly went black. The video had been cut off. At that exact moment, the tunnel lights went out. Someone was standing at the entrance, slowly clapping. The person walking toward us already knew everything, and claimed my mother had been alive less than 24 hours earlier. The slow clapping echoed through the dark tunnel. Every instinct told me to run, but my legs refused to move. A tall man stepped into the emergency lights wearing a dark overcoat. His face remained hidden until he stopped only a few feet away. Then he smiled. I've been looking for you, Emma. Daniel immediately stepped in front of me. Stay back. The stranger calmly raised both hands. I'm not your enemy. Grace stared at him for several seconds before whispering, I know him. My heart skipped. Who is he? She couldn't believe what she was seeing. His name is Thomas Reed. The man slowly nodded. I worked for Senator Hayes. Every muscle in my body tightened. Worked? I resigned yesterday. I didn't trust him. Why should I believe anything you say? Without speaking, Thomas placed a sealed evidence folder on the table. Inside were hundreds of classified documents, bank transfers, hospital records, court files, photographs, everything connected to the Bennett case. At the very bottom lay one final document, Olivia Bennett, Witness Protection Transfer. My breathing stopped. She's alive. Thomas nodded. She has been under federal protection for the last 6 months. Tears rolled down my face. Can I see her? He smiled. Right now. 1 hour later, a black government vehicle stopped outside a secure federal building. The doors opened. A woman slowly stepped outside, the same warm eyes, the same gentle smile from the old video. Only now. She was standing in front of me. Neither of us spoke. We simply ran toward each other. For 28 years, we had lived with lies. For 28 years, someone had stolen our family. Now, for the first time, no one stood between us. As my mother held me tightly, she whispered the words I had waited my entire life to hear. I never stopped loving you. Behind us, federal agents placed Senator William Hayes under arrest as reporters captured everything on live television. Days later, every forged document was overturned. My original birth records were restored. My mother's name was finally placed back where it belonged. Michael Carter was publicly cleared of every accusation before his funeral. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, the truth wasn't hidden anymore. It finally had a voice. And that voice belonged to our family. Some lies survive for years, but the truth only needs one chance to be heard. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes that the truth always finds its way home. Until next time, thank you for watching.